Hello and welcome to today. And we're going to be talking about something that you don't want to think about, but what happens if you lose your job? So, whether you get fired or you leave voluntarily, there's some things that you should be aware of in that situation. So, first of all, you really want to take your time reviewing paperwork. If you get fired, your employer will likely have you sign some things right away. And it's recommended that you never jump into signing things, especially if you got caught off guard or you were surprised. You want to kind of take your time, review the documents, make sure you understand what you're signing, and possibly even have someone like an attorney or your accountant take a look at them to review them. Because the rules for firing an employee vary by state. So if you think you were wrongly terminated, you should take immediate action with a labor or an employment attorney. If you leave on your own, it's always smart if you can to secure another position first. Typically, it's 2 weeks' notice that you want to give to your former employer. But even if you do give more than 2 weeks' notice, you might be asked to leave right away. So, you want to be prepared for that as well. Um, you want to ask for documentation about the circumstances if you're let go. And if it's for any reason that's outside of your control, like changes in the economy or mergers, restructuring, you should ask for some kind of a documentation to explain the specific circumstances. Again, make sure you review any kind of a termination letter for accuracy and don't hesitate to ask for corrections if there's something in there that doesn't seem quite right to you. Before you leave an employer voluntarily, it might be smart to think about asking for recommendation letters from your direct manager or human resources department, other coworkers, if they're willing to do that. And it's important to remember that no matter how you leave, you want to leave in a professional manner. You don't want to burn any bridges with anybody that you may need a connection with later on. Be sure to negotiate any severance compensation. So, depending on your role and the circumstances regarding your exit, you may get offered a severance package, like a month or two of salary. Sometimes it's more than that. And there's usually room to negotiate that package, especially if you think it's below industry standards. So, if you ask for extra compensation and the company won't agree, you might ask for other benefits instead of monetary, like maybe are they willing to cover your health insurance for a few extra months or write additional letters of recommendation in lieu of higher compensation. When you get your final paycheck from your employer, you want to make sure that it's accurate, that you've been given credit for any paid time off or sick days that you're due when you leave the company. You might not get a check if it's from a larger company and they did a large set of layoffs for several weeks while they work through and process everything. When you leave voluntarily, you might have some room to negotiate your exit compensation. Like maybe they would be willing to pay you extra if you create documentation about your role and your job responsibilities. Maybe they want you to stay on to train someone new that's coming in to replace you, or even even work part time for a transitional period. You want to file for unemployment. If the reason that you get laid off or fired is not due to cause, like poor performance or violating any kind of company rules, then you can apply for unemployment benefits, which replace a portion of your income while you look for other work. Some states have regulations or considerations for individuals that have disabilities, so you want to be, aware of those. You can start at the Department of Labor website to learn how to apply for benefits. And even if you think that you'll find another job pretty quickly, it's smart to start that process sooner than later because there's a little bit of it takes a little bit of time for you to create the record, for them to see what you're entitled to. So you want to kind of get a jump on that. Most states will allow you to collect for 26 weeks. However, in some cases, if, like before I mentioned, if you're getting severance, you might not qualify for unemployment benefits until that severance runs out. If you voluntarily leave a job, you're never entitled to unemployment. The purpose of it is to supplement workers who are, who unexpectedly lose their job, and then, they have that income to help supplement while they search for another job. Insurance is another area that you want to be, really aware of after you get fired or voluntarily leave. You might lose things like your health insurance, life insurance, disability, um, at the end of the month in which the termination occurs. So even if you negotiate to extend those for a little while, you want to start shopping around for replacement policies. Unless you work for a small business, you're typically entitled to COBRA continuation for up to 18 months. And that just allows you to keep the same medical, dental, and vision that you had for up to 18 months. It can be expensive though. So you want to be very aware of what those costs are. Alternatively, you could, if you're married or you have a domestic partner, you can look into what benefits are available through their employer for you, and you can price those out and also kind of compare them to what you could buy if you had to buy individual insurance on the marketplace. If you get a new job pretty quick, then paying Cobra might not be too bad because it's going to be a limited time that you're paying the higher premiums, but you get to maintain your same benefits. And if you're really comfortable with them, then that might really make sense for a shorter period of time. The federal marketplace you can find at healthcare.gov. And also, depending on your income and the size of your family, the marketplace offers subsidies that can reduce and, in some cases, eliminate any premiums. So, you want to also be mindful of that. There's a lot of health insurance brokers that are available to help you. We actually work with one specifically who has been really, really helpful to our clients when they've been in transitional periods looking for health insurance, or even in between retirement and Medicare if you're younger than 65. Yeah, again, I mentioned before, but you also might need to replace other policies like life and disability insurance. Your spouse or domestic partner, you might be able to pick up coverage through their employer on your life. It's usually not as much as you probably had on your own, through your own employer. So you just need to be very aware of the risk that's back on the table when you're no longer employed. Regarding a retirement plan, if you have a 401k or a 403b with your former employer, typically you have quite a few options. You're not forced to do anything right away there, so you can leave the plan alone. But alternatively, you can do a tax free rollover to an IRA. The IRS allows you to withdraw some or all of your balance from one retirement account and transfer it to another. If it's if it's pre-tax to pre-tax, then there's no tax associated with that. If you have a new job, you very well may be able to roll your old retirement plan into the new plan. So you want to be aware of that. And again, you're not forced to do that right away, but if you get a new job, that might be something that you want to go ahead and consolidate and take care of sooner than later. Okay. And we talked about that you could do nothing and keep it as is. One other thing to be aware of, some retirement plans have a vesting period. So whatever you contribute to the plans is always yours. But sometimes if it's like a 401k with a profit share tied to it, the employer may put extra money in on your behalf, but there might be a vesting schedule. And sometimes it's 20% a year for 5 years. So if you leave before you have completed those 5 years of service, then you might have to leave that money on the table. There's really nothing you can do about it. If you leave before it vests, you're not entitled to it. So it just remains in the plan, and it's not going to be part of something that you roll over. So there's a lot of things to think about when you lose or leave a job. These are just some of them. So if you or someone you know are going through a transitional period in your career and you need help, you can reach out to us and you can call us reach us on our website, which is www.braun-bostich.com. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you.